Wednesday, November 7th, 2023. Our guests are Christi Tasker, Tasker Agency, Patriots Perspective. Christi is running for Miami Commission. She's an entrepreneur, fashion designer, a technologist, and an international investigative journalist for the Awake Nation. You can find Christi at ChristiTasker4Miami.com. Our next guest is Dr. Reg McDaniel. Dr. McDaniel, New Eden Supplement. Currently, Dr. McDaniel is Director of Research at Wellness Quest, LLC. He's published numerous educational papers on the effects of glyconutritionals in relation to various conditions. Our next guest is Nathan Reynolds, author, Snatched from the Flames. Nathan Reynolds is an author who was used as a sleeper assassin. As a young boy, Nathan's innocence and body were used as currency to purchase influence and power by his deep-rooted Luciferian family members. And rounding out the final hour of the Awake Nation is Jinny Silcox. Jinny was formerly employed with the Department of Energy. She was a designer and trainer. Jinny held Q clearance. She is a musicologist and international speaker on frequency, direct energy weapons, electromagnetics, and the dangers of 5G and the future of AI. Don't forget to subscribe to the Dark Outpost at darkoutpost.tv. There you will find exclusive content, interviews, documentaries, and intel not found anywhere else. For the full show, go to awakenation.tv. Falling down the rabbit hole can hurt. Ouch! Oh boy, that's gonna hurt. We will provide the researchers and whistleblowers. Your mission is to discern the truth from the MSN lies. And now for the interview portion of the Awake Nation. And awake we go with a shot of espresso. It's showtime!
All righty. Welcome back to the Awake Nation. Truth with a shot of espresso. David Zublick, Penny L.A. Shepard, and joining us now, as she does every week at this time, is the about-to-be elected city commissioner for Miami, Christi Tasker. Christi, well, how are you?
Hello, Awake Nation. Here we are. It's the final countdown.
We need to get her a statue of like Rocky Balboa.
Right. That's my theme song for today. Yesterday it was tomorrow, I love ya, tomorrow. And I will not sing anymore. Otherwise, our audience will be like, "Thank God she did not go to Broadway."
No, but you'll do more good than any Broadway. And I love. My wife is an executive director of a theater group, so I love Broadway and I love theater. But you're going to do a hell of a lot more good. So.
Hey, listen, David, I love Broadway too. And actually, it's one of my favorite things. Broadway music, everything they've tried to take away from the kids in the school, man, we're going to get it back in tenfold, and we're coming after them, and they know it. So listen, you know what they've even tried to do here lately? So there's these intersections, and they have like all these signs on them, right? So like on like empty property and empty lots. And there'll be like chain link fences. Well, all of the politicians always put their signs on these chain link fences, like when they're at the major intersections.
Right.
Okay. So conveniently, 2 elections in a row, they have removed the signs after mail-in ballots and early voting. They just removed them. What does that tell you? They want Republicans to think the election is over.
Right, exactly.
Before election day.
Wow.
Yeah, so let's just say last night we counteracted. We got on every street corner. We had volunteers on like every major intersection and all the street corners, basically just waving signs, making sure people knew that today is the day. November the 7th is the day that we should all be going to vote, because we should not be having this 9 days of early voting and mail-in voting. I mean, come on. Back in the day, people spent hours trying to get somewhere to vote, standing in line to vote. And listen, I know that they want to say they're trying to make it easier, but what they're really mean is they're making it easier for them to cheat. I mean, that's all that it's making it easier for, making it easier for them to steal your tax dollars and cheat.
Right.
So it just gets funnier and funnier. You know, and then when I find out more and more with the money that they've actually been stealing. Have you guys ever seen an almost $8 million pool?
No.
You mean swimming
My
pool?
dad used to build pools. No.
Yeah, I know, right? So, okay, Penny, you can really relate to this. So in Virrick Park pool,
Right.
I've got documentation that they're charging $8 million almost for this pool.
Is anyone going to swim in it?
Pool. An $8 million pool that, by the way, hold on, wait. Hold on. I have to bring this up for our audience because you won't even believe this. Okay.
I think my father worked on the Fontainebleau pool.
Oh, did he really?
Pool contractor. Yes, that's what he did for a living.
That's really interesting. So, okay. These are the contracts that I'm about to show our audience of what City of Miami considers a contract. Okay. I call them a one-liner joke. Is everybody seeing this?
Wow.
Wow.
I mean, literally, it's not even scanned in properly. It's like crooked. Okay. It's as crooked as they are.
Oh, it's
They're
done in
working.
kindergarten class between finger painting and nap time.
So look, and it's stamped with like an old school stamp. Offers from the vendors. Here are only offers that are received. Fill in other offers may be submitted in response to this solicitation, if any, if hereby rejected as later.
More ink in the damn stamp.
No cost, justification, materials.
No, this is the bid amount total. Okay, look at this. This is the project phases. So base bid, alternate B, alternate C, total amount $6,385,400, and the owner's contingency $114,600 for a grand contract total, just so conveniently, equals $6.5 million. What a bargain, author Noriega. Again, remember last week when we talked about the author of all things. Okay, here we go. Everybody needs to pay attention to all of these people. These are the people taking your money, Miami, right here. These are the people covering up for the criminal cartel that we call the Miami Mafia. This is them. Okay, everybody take note. If your name's on here, they should be investigated, FBI. Every single one of them. Okay.
Right.
So let's just go back. Let's look at a couple more pieces of the puzzle. Okay. So here is an interoffice memorandum regarding this pool. Okay. Like these are vague documents, everybody. When I say a one-liner joke, it's like a one-liner joke here. Okay. So, I mean, we just have to pay attention to these things. I mean, there's so little documentation on these projects. It's no wonder they continue.
Where was this swimming pool going to go?
Oh, well, let's just look at that, David. That's a great question. It goes in the poorest area of Miami's District 2.
Oh,
which is
need an $8 million pool.
Right. They want to title it the West Grove. They want to hope that people aren't going to pay attention. And then they take forever to get things done so that people then beg for them. Okay. They shouldn't have to beg for them to begin with,
Right.
but it's here. Okay. So I'll just bring it up so everybody can see where this pool is located. And yes, the pool should absolutely be done. Okay. It should be absolutely be done. It should not take years to build a pool. I mean, it's like, this is ridiculous. I mean, they literally go in the West Grove. It looks like they have not cleaned up the West Grove in probably years. And then they turn around and they want to blame, the West Grove on themselves when the actuality.
So they have to go through a bunch of eyesores, is what you're telling me, because not clean up.
No, they create the eyesores.
I know, but they have to go through that to get to an $8 million pool.
Well, the thing is that, David, the pool most likely really is not an $8 million pool. Okay. And the reality is they're stealing money off of taxpayer dollars.
Right.
And I'm not saying that until they can produce the documents for me that actually show what we paid for. I want to see the tiles listed. I want to see the bathroom fixtures listed. I want to see how much we paid for each thing.
Right.
Because that is where we are being stolen from, basically. And not only that, but when it comes to the plans of this Virrick Park pool, I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous and atrocious that we would have these things happen to begin with. So our audience,
that's a pork project if I ever saw one.
Yeah. No joke. I mean, it is like, and these are the type of things that they do, right? They break ground and they don't inform the community as a whole of what's actually happening. So they broke ground. Ken Russell broke ground on this pool back in, let's see, this was actually done in June. Let me just confirm here. This is it was actually a while back. So the pool was originally built in 1963. And what happened was they broke ground on the pool, and the pool depth used to be like over 9 feet deep. Well, now they made it 5 feet 3 inches deep. And USA Swimming itself right here recommends that pools have a depth of 6 feet or deeper to host competitive swimming events.
Right. For Olympics style swimming, they got it at 6 to 8 feet. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. No, at least 6 feet, right? And then if you have diving, you need it at least like 10 or 11 feet deep.
Correct.
So it's like a joke. They're constantly like messing with the Black community, and I'm sick and tired of it, to be honest with you. So there's going to be a press conference today where we're going to be addressing the press as a whole as to the findings of the documents on this pool. And we're going to be demanding that the project have a stop work on it until we can actually see exactly what has been spent, what has been awarded in the contract, why it was awarded, how did it get passed? Because, I mean, the plans are clearly on the city website of the pool as a whole. So you can actually click through on, I believe it's this article, where you can click through and see the plans of the pool, the swimming pool renovation plans are here. Oh, the project started in June of 2022. I thought so. It's been over a year since it's been a year.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and here are the plans for the pool. Okay. So I don't know how the community, if they just weren't informed, but, here's the north elevation, the west elevation, south elevation, like what the building is supposed to look like as a whole. But what they do is they come in and they build these buildings, and the building is nothing more than a concrete block. Okay. So it's very, very, very cheap. And our city government is not even getting any kind of line item detail, as you can see, as to what we're actually paying for. Like, are we paying for $1 million toilet, or are we paying for, a very small toilet? We don't really know. We have no idea what we're paying for. So that alone needs to change. And then we need to be paying attention. And I say this to everybody out there because these kind of projects are probably occurring in your community.
Oh, yes.
So just search for them. Look at the plans themselves, because the original plans do show that this pool is only going to be it actually says 6 feet deep. So considering the contractor made it 5'3" when it was supposed to be 6 feet, basically both, if the city missed that in the plans as a whole, like in other words, if they weren't making it 9 feet deep, and then the contractor said it was going to be 6 feet, but yet it's only 5'3", then the whole thing could go back to the table because it's got to be redug anyway. So they could blame it on the contractor. That's what I would do. And then just make concessions with the contractor. And as a whole, it's not going to cost the contractor very much more, if anything. And I would also utilize this as an opportunity to actually go back and review the entire contract, considering they're only, in a partial phase right now, because I think we could probably find that this particular park could be built for a lot less than our $6.5 million for cinder block bathroom walls with a little bit of paint on them. And then in the David Kennedy Park, the $1,132,000 bathroom actually is cinder block with no tile on the walls. Okay. So if feces or anything like that gets wiped onto the cinder block walls, cinder block absorbs crap. Okay. It just absorbs crap, dust, dirt. Right. You need tile on things so that you can actually wipe it clean. That's the purpose. You need a solid surface, what's called a solid surface. And concrete is porous. So concrete is not considered a solid surface. Imagine that. So I have a feeling a few things probably got missed off of these contracts.
Interesting. And, I'm wondering what's his name? Winston Churchill's golden toilet was stolen.
Was it?
So maybe it's going to end up in that Miami park there.
Here's the thing.
It's a solid gold
toilet. Poop is poop. Why do you need a solid gold toilet to flush it down?
I don't know.
I do like my Kohler Vale toilet quite a bit. And the new
Is it a bidet?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, you want to hear something really weird?
Yeah. Because
you know me. I'm all about weird. When I was homeless, I drove across the United States twice, and I often stayed in truck stops if I had to, and then I worked literally from like a Dunkin' Donuts or a Starbucks, anything that was open 24 hours, because I had Wi-Fi and good coffee. You know how I am about coffee, and the donuts too, right? Can't do that. So I'm going up this hill to this, like, I think it wasn't a Dunkin' Donuts. I can't remember what it was, but it was a donut place. It was a chain. And when I'm going up the hill, I see this airplane part, like the wing. Some guy's got this wing on a truck in front of me. And so I look over there, and that's when I noticed this donut place. I go inside, and they ask me, now, mind you, I just want to tell people, if you're homeless, that doesn't mean you have to dress bad. Okay. You still dress good.
We have clean homeless people here. We actually have.
Yes, I taught my brother how to do that. That's why people said he wasn't homeless. So I go in, and they ask me, I set up my computer and everything. I'm researching. They say, "Are you from corporate?" And I'm like, "No." And then I go into the bathroom, and I kid you not, it was marble. They had a bidet in each toilet. We're talking about like a Dunkin' Donuts kind of thing, all right?
Yeah.
They had bidets, heated seats, a full like lead door. Literally, there was enough room in there where if you were a homeless person, you could probably live in there. Okay, they could have performed surgery in there, and I was like, just going, "Oh my God, how in the world could they possibly afford it?" There's 12 stalls, all huge, with these like lead Superman doors in there, a heated toilet with a bidet in it. How did they afford that, Christy?
Well, there's a couple of ways. So, number one, it may have been a sponsored toilet, to be honest with you, Penny, because a lot of brands will sponsor things to go in businesses or in venues because they know that you're going to use them and you're going to probably like it. So it really just depends. And there may be other, if they're depending on what the brand was. I mean, like the most expensive toilets on the market are like a Toto toilet, which is about a $9,000 toilet. Okay. So even if you had, in the case of our city, even if you had the most expensive toilets, you still would not spend as much as they're saying that you would spend on these bathrooms and the basic things. The toilets that they're currently sourcing are about $200, not.
So
not
what
even
we're saying
$2,000.
is through construction, because my dad was in the pool contracting business, my fake dad, that is, we already know that a lot of the contracts are owned by mob, right? In construction, because that's a fast facilitation of money laundering.
Right. And then, the other thing that I noticed is like on the elevations and stuff as a whole for our city. So when it comes to the pool elevations and things like that, the one thing they failed to do, and I'll just show everybody really quick, David, sorry about that. I'm going to bring something back up because these are the pool plans. One of the things that we need to start paying attention to as citizens is who is the architecture firm. Okay. So you can look up the architecture firm, the building firm to see who has been permitted, who's digitally signed off on the projects. I mean, just look for names on the plans. Okay. And
what is that? Stop for a second. That black and white thing, that's an actual symbol.
Yeah, that's a symbol. It's an architectural symbol. I mean, obviously we know it as the yin and yang symbol.
That's what it is.
Yeah. It's the yin and yang symbol.
This is why they're afraid of you, Christi Tasker.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. They
know
that I know how to read plans.
Yes. You read plans, you are designer, you're so many different things. You're technologist, and you will research everything to find out where the money is going. And you are a great protectorate for the people in Miami.
Yeah, they've got this labeled as a 10-inch main drain line to a pool connector tank. Well, the other things that I'll be able to bring forth for our citizens is actual experts outside the field that are just so happen to be sometimes my family members or friends. And I'm not talking about a paid position. I'm talking about just being able to say, hey, is this correct? Like, hey, this doesn't look right to me. Is this correct? So that's what I've got like under my belt as a whole. And then I also understand how things function. So for instance, I mean, Penny, with your father being a pool builder, to me, this does not look like enough jets or underwater lights, depending on the amount of space between them. It looks like that we've really skimped on the number of lights. And as a whole, I mean, I think we can all look at this pool, the light structure, and see that like, okay, they're not even evenly spaced apart. So I would have asked the contractor like, hey, it looks like we only have 4 lights for this ginormous pool we have going here.
Is that a second pool, Christy? What's that other thing?
It's here at the top.
Yes. What's that?
Oh, that's the other elevation portion. So that's the lap pool. So basically they have this identified for the lap marker. So this is actually underneath the water. So there are tiles underneath the water so that swimmers know where to stay in their lanes.
Okay.
So
stay in your lane, bro.
Stay in your lane. That's right. Maybe that's the name of this episode, right? So, I mean, like, for instance, I think, and I want the public to understand this. Listen, I think anybody can look and go, okay, they're telling me that these are lights. Okay. And there's no light in the center of the pool. I mean, believe it or not, they skimp on stuff like this. Like they will purposely skimp on stuff like that. And then afterwards be like, oops, we didn't know that it was going to be a big dark spot in the center. Sorry. It's like, that's not acceptable to me. It's like, those are the kind of things that can be prevented in the very beginning. And why can't we go ahead and make the lap pool, a diving pool as well? So when it comes to the pool as a whole, I'm not really sure that people are really happy with the 0 depth entry detail, but I would have explained these things to the public a little better, most likely, so that they at least understood what they were getting instead of trying to hoodwink them. Okay. Because I mean, that's a lot of times what people try to do is just an absolute hoodwink. in terms of, what we get anyway. And then the other thing is, and I'll just show you this is their board showing you like what everything is going to look like. Honestly, this looks really sloppily done, if you want to know the truth. As a whole, it's just a board that, number one, it's a low resolution on the website, so you can't tell what the names of anything are. So like uploading a high resolution photo with like a video for the public to see so that you don't have to go to the meeting, but yet you can comment on the website. I mean, why shouldn't everybody be able to do that? And then also being able to ask questions in general of like, this bathhouse building, what is it going to be built out of? Is it cinder block? Is it poured concrete? What is it? And then, is this a good material? I mean, this is Dominican coral. Do we have local coral that we could have utilized? It looks like it's Dominican coral stone. But, like, are the colors actually conducive? Do we actually want green walls, and why did they choose green walls? Explain that to the public. So basically they're saying, here the elements include a 25-yard lap pool with 6 swimming lanes, shallow pool to facilitate new learning. But, nobody probably explained to the public that, hey, this is going to be, this pool is going to replace this pool. Are you guys okay with it? Obviously you had a diving board.
The pool. That's the current pool.
Yeah, this is the current pool. So this pool was like built in the 1960s, and wouldn't
it be funny if my dad built that?
Wouldn't that be funny if your dad did build that? Yeah, we should look that up.
You should find out.
I know. So this is what we're talking about. That's being replaced. So, and how much of it needs to be replaced through the bathhouse? Does everything need to be torn out in Miami? Because that's another thing is every time we tear out things, we have to find, we have to take that to the landfill. Our landfill is almost full. So we should be asking ourselves questions of like, how much of this actually needed to be replaced? How much of it could have been saved? Or any, I mean, maybe there's really not any of it that should have been saved. I mean, I don't know, but those are questions that I will be asking as your next commissioner. We will not be hoodwinked by any of these plans, and the public will have not only online social media and direct connections, just like you do for my town hall Tuesdays at 12, but we will also know exactly what meetings are occurring. I'll be reminding you of meetings. You'll have a brief before the meeting so that you're aware of what's happening, so that you're not, in a city meeting going, hey, what just happened here? I mean, because that can be crazy as well. So there's just a lot that's going to change in terms of communication under my leadership, because right now that's part of how they're getting by with, not informing the public as a whole. So they're getting by with basic things like this, and then turning around going, oops, our contractor said it's going to be, double the amount if we, go with a 9-foot deep pool. Well, we all know that that's not true. So that's a lie. So was that intentional in the very beginning, to come up and say, we have a $6.5 million contract that we've awarded, and if you want it 9 feet deep, we're going to have to double the cost? Like, that's not true at all, or even any cost for that matter.
All right. We are just about out of time, but I want to make your last pitch. Today's the day they're going to the polls.
Yep. Today is the day.
We want Christi Tasker elected.
Yes. November the 7th. Today is the day. Please go out and vote. 7 a.m., 7 p.m. Polls close. If you want to be a part of the victory party tonight at 7:30, we have the location. Make sure that you DM me on social media, and we'll see if we have any tickets available. But thank you all for all of your support. If you want to continue to give, because we are most likely going to go into a runoff. There will most likely be a runoff election between me and Sabina Covo. And that runoff election will occur most likely. It's going to be on November the 21st. However, at this very moment, my campaign cannot take any more donations until tomorrow. if when I'm in the runoff tomorrow, I will be able to take more contributions. But for right now, you can give to citizensfirst.us. Citizensfirst.us. That is a campaign PAC that will allow us to continue to raise money for the runoff election. And I think all of our people who have given, please, if you have not already given to citizensfirst.us, please go on and do so.
All right, folks, get out there and vote today. Is there any possibility there won't be a runoff, that you'll just win?
Well, possibly. If all the Republicans actually get out and vote that have told me that they're going to get out and vote, we will absolutely win in a slam dunk, David. We absolutely could win in a slam dunk. And I would love that, because I would love to just go to work and not have to campaign for 2 weeks, for an additional 2 weeks.
For another 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, because trust me, I can get a lot done before the end of the year and get some things through in that next meeting that's going to occur that they don't want to happen. Trust me, they want us to have to go to a runoff with Sabina Kovo. They need her to stay in power for 2 more weeks. So I'm going to tell our audience, make sure that you get out and vote Christi for Miami. And that's number 266 on your ballot. Make sure that you go today before 7 p.m. Surprise them at the polls. Let's make sure that we do not have 4 more years of a person who cannot say the Pledge of Allegiance, who cannot. Yeah, this is ridiculous, right, Penny? That cannot say the Pledge of Allegiance and who already has over $675,000 of billboard money, developer money, special interest money, LGBTQ money from a PAC from Damian Pardo. If you guys missed my town hall last week, make sure that you go on to youtube.com and then just search Christi, CHRISTI, the number 4 Miami. And that's me on all social media, Christi for Miami, on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Make sure that you go on, you like, you comment, you subscribe, you follow, because let me tell you, those comments are coming through, and I really appreciate our audience even taking the time, no matter where you are, to like my pages, follow the pages, comment, and like, David. That's a huge help from our audience that is from afar.
And when will you know if you won outright, or if there's going to be a runoff? Will you know that at least by tomorrow?
We'll know it. We should know it by tonight. We should know
by tonight.
Yeah. Tonight. Okay. I mean, today is the day. I mean, this is it. And we have such a low voter turnout in general because we have a total of 3 elections for 6 seats. 3 of the seats are up for re-election right now. And those are your commission seats. And Miami, if you have not already voted in District 1, in District, District 1, District 4, and District 2. I'm District 2. So make sure that you do go out and vote, and let's flip over the apple cart on this group of government gangsters.
All right. Very good. Get out there and vote. Christi, the number 4 Miami.com. Get out there today. Too late to go to the website. Go to the polls, vote, and let us know. I mean, we'll report tomorrow morning whether it's a runoff or whether you are the new, commissioner, in which case we will
give me a prize, Ms. Tasker.
I sure will. And make sure that everybody follows my social media. That's where I'll publish everything, you guys.
Sounds great.
Yeah, make sure that you go to Christi, CHRISTI, and the number 4 Miami on any social media sites. I'm there. All
right, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you all.
You too. Christi Tasker here on the Awake Nation. We're going to take a very quick break. When we come back, Dr. Reginald McDaniel will join us, and let's take that out of there. And we will continue with him, and we're going to be talking about proper nutrition. So don't go anywhere. We will be back in just a brief momento. And welcome back to the Awake Nation. Truth with a Shot of Espresso. Penny L.A. Shepard, David Zublick with you. And, of course, joining us now, as he does on a regular basis, is Dr. Reg McDaniel of Wellness Quest. Dr. McDaniel, welcome to the Awake Nation. How are you today? And you're muted. You have to unmute your mic there.
Did he just freeze?
I'm sorry, what?
Did he just freeze?
He might have. Yes, indeed. I think he just froze up. Oh, this is going to be one of this is going to be one of those days. I can tell.
Oh, he's moving. I see him moving.
Yeah.
He's talking, and we can't.
But you're muted, Dr. McDaniel. You have to unmute your mic. He needs to get some. Let her know that he is muted and we cannot hear him. The microphone does need to be turned on so that we can understand everything that he is saying. So we'll do that in just a moment here. We're talking with Dr. Reg McDaniel of Wellness Quest, and he is quite an individual, done quite a bit for the health and wellness industry, and especially proper nutrition. And we do have the PowerPoint presentation. It is now working properly. So all we need to do is get him unmuted, and we will be ready to go. He needs to open his. We don't have a direct. He doesn't. I don't know if he has a cell phone or not. But.
Yeah, I just sent it to Tony. Sent a message to her, and then I'm also going to email her real quick.
Okay. In the meantime, while we are waiting for that, I'm going to do a quick story here, just so that I teased this earlier on the broadcast. Here it is. Oh, this is even bigger.
Oh, God, he unmuted for just a second.
What? No,
he unmuted for just a second, and he remuted.
Okay. He needs to unmute the microphone. And I don't think he knows. He's not very. He's extremely good at nutrition. Technically, he's like me, which is not too good. By the way, you know that Stephen. You know Stephen. Dr. McDaniel, don't touch anything else. You right there? No, he froze.
No,
can you hear me?
Yes.
Now he just muted. He muted himself. Don't touch anything else. Don't touch anything else. You're fine. No. Okay. You need to.
I'm actually going to call her.
Okay, go ahead, call. And in the meantime, I'll take care of this quick story. Stephen Crowder, by the way, is a talk show host who does. Dr. McDaniel, don't touch anything else. If you can hear me, don't touch anything else. Don't push any buttons. Can you say something? No, we have problems. He's also partially frozen. So I'm going to do this news story while we're waiting. Nashville trans shooter was inspired by the World Economic Forum to kill all white people. Stephen Crowder tried to report this on his YouTube channel, and they took his video down for reporting on the Nashville shooter's manifesto. Transgender mass shooter Audrey Aiden Hale's leaked manifesto reveals that the World Economic Forum's anti-white agenda inspired her to carry out the massacre. Hale murdered 6 people at Covenant School on March 27th in Green Hills, Tennessee, and her manifesto was deliberately hidden by Biden's FBI from the public. 3 pages of Hale's manifesto were leaked on Monday and corroborated as authentic by Louder with Crowder. That's Stephen Crowder's show on YouTube. The leaked pages reveal that Hale aligned with the WEF's war on Christianity and white people. She admitted in her manifesto that she wished to carry out the globalists' vision of eradicating white Christians from the face of the earth. Information Liberation reports that the manifesto shows Hale meticulously planned her death day and aimed to kill as many white children as she could. Quote, I hope I have a high death count, Hale wrote. Can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm ready. I hope my victims aren't. Wow. Kill those kids, those crackers going to fancy private schools and those fancy khakis and sports backpacks with their daddy's Mustangs and convertibles, Hale said. Fuck you, little shits. I wish to shoot you weak-ass dicks with your mop yellow hair. Want to kill you all, little crackers, bunch of little faggots with your white privilege.
I'm sorry, what manifesto was this? Because I missed it.
This is the manifesto of what's her name? Hang on.
It's a girl?
Audrey Aiden Hale, the Nashville shooter. Remember the trans shooter that went on a rampage in a school?
Yes.
And they withheld the manifesto. Well, it finally got leaked. And Stephen Crowder of Louder with Crowder on YouTube broadcast the contents of the manifesto, which we are broadcasting now, but YouTube took the video down.
Why did they do that? Because did they say that it was hate speech when it
was probably. Nonetheless, it says, she said, I want to kill all
That's
you
good to know. We're not going to report that story on YouTube.
No, we will not. That's why I'm reporting it here. There were several times I could have been caught, especially back in the summer of 2021, Hale wrote without elaborating. And then there are pictures of the manifesto, and it's all there. And
it sounds like she pretty much hated everyone.
Well, at least white people and Christians, no doubt about that. All right, here's Dr. McDaniel is apparently attempting to get back into this. Is going to be a two-parter, folks, because we're not going to get to this whole thing in the next few minutes. But let's bring him on back in. Dr. McDaniel,
do you
there?
Hear?
Yes.
Do you hear?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, there was a big icon here that said muted, so I clicked on it. When it said muted, it said unmuted, and apparently I turned it off. Do we still have 30 minutes?
Well, you have about 17. So what we're going to do is we're going to get started with this today and probably have to pick up next time you're on the program. But I do have part one, not part one, but the beginning of your presentation up on the screen. So we can begin and go for about 15 minutes, I'm afraid.
Okay. The World Health Organization, which is a division of the United Nations, has identified multiple areas where people live to 90 to 100 years old or older and in good health. And they have gone in trying to figure out what in the world is going on in these areas, which have a common thing. They tend to be islands or peninsulas or areas that are not in the big population areas. Let's go to the next slide. Even National Geographic has done a series on these blue zones because it actually addresses 100% of the population. Let's go to the next slide, please. They are 5 different areas that I wanted to point out that before these areas were identified, that in my job for 10 years as a medical director that went over 10 nations, that we were seeing what I called white box effect, that if people had multiple deviations from normal, that by improving nutrition, first, the most life-threatening process they had, which was usually infections. It's not generally known that before antibiotics and sulfa drugs, that infections were the biggest or the number one cause of death in populations. But now it's malignancy, and then it was autoimmune. And the point I'm making is like there's an internal intelligence to correct the most life-threatening conditions, and it would end up that dandruff was the last thing that would improve. Now, this is a theory, and we were on a project with a bishop in India in the city of Kerala to do a clinic to test this, to the type of thing that leads to these blue zones. The next slide, please. This one of the first ones that they pointed out was the island of Lucaria of Greece, and as we I don't think people know where it is, but this is almost in Turkey. That is an isolated area that they have not changed the society for decades. In other words, they're living like they did in the early days of Greece. Next slide. The characteristic was that is of all these blue zones, that plant-based nutrition is the biggest part of it. And what we have here is an analysis of Greece, that the diet profile that green vegetables and out of the garden, that is about 37% of greens and vegetables. Potatoes and legumes and grains and pasta were high, and fruits were high, and olive oil was in their diets, and they had low sweets, and no less than 5% of their caloric intake or food was red meat, and fish was 6%. This was a characteristic.
Wow.
And one of the points I want to make of this is that you don't have to move to Greece to do this. That I want to repeat over and over again, that if you add New Eden to your diet, which has about 13 different plant-based nutrients in it, and walk 3 miles a week or equivalent, you can do that by swimming or on a bicycle or something to, because of the joints, some people can't run. Next slide, please. This shows you what was typical of the diets in Greece. And the most important thing was the low amount of meats, which seemed to be the characteristic of all these blue zones. Next slide, please.
All right.
I originally had an hour for each one of these blue zones, so I've tried to cut it down to make it faster. But you should realize that by addressing your diet and adding more plant-based nutrients, walking an equivalent of at least 3 miles a week, and having an idealistic or pure lifestyle can provide, regardless of where you live, the benefits that they found in the blue zones. And this idealistic or pure lifestyle is no tobacco or smoking. It's not healthy for the lungs to burn plant material or any kind of material and suck them into the lungs. That you shouldn't have excessive alcohol intake and no illegal drugs. And you should probably limit the number of prescription drugs, because the reason prescription drugs work is that they're poisons that poison the coding in the genes to reduce symptoms, whereas nutrition supports the engineering and design of life rather than poison it. And also you should avoid contact with other people, particularly exchanging body fluids. This is pretty apparent. Let's go to the next slide. That's the type of thing that you can do in your diet. Another blue zone was Sardinia, Italy. If you'll notice, it's an island to the west of Italy, and we have it there so that if you're not familiar where it is, the next slide, please, that the characteristics of this was that 67% of their diet in this island, and they pointed out that they're primarily shepherds and fishermen, and in their daily work, they get exercise. In fact, his father of Western medicine from Greece, Hippocrates, is famous for saying, you can find it on the web, that if we could provide the individual the proper nutrition and exercise, not too much, not too little, we would have found the safest pathway to good health. And that's what they found out in these blue zones. And then he wrote beneath this, let your food be your medicine and your medicine your food. And so what you've got in your diet is very important. If you'll see there in Sardinia that vegetables and fruit were high, legumes and grains were 47%. Fact is, they said that the diets of these shepherds on the island were very much like in the Roman times, when out of Rome was the primary society or government of the Mediterranean area. That about fish and poultry was about 5% of their diet, dairy 26%, added fats were only about 2%, and they had low sugar intake. The next slide, please.
All right.
Again, I want to emphasize you don't have to go live on Sardinia to do this. That by adding to your diet the ingredients that are in the New Eden that I've spent 37 years developing. And in Sardinia, they had a lot of sheep milk, meat no more than once a week, and primarily at festivals. They had a lot of beans, they had lard, and they're heavy on garden food. And there a lot of zucchini squash, tomatoes, potatoes, and eggplant. They have a special coffee, and they have a national dessert that's made of raisins, grape juice, almonds, fentanyl seed, which I wasn't familiar with. And it's actually for health benefits. You can see for all these individual things by going to Google and saying health benefits of raisins, health benefits of grape juice, health benefits of almonds. And you'll see that this is very healthy to have in your diet, because of the biochemistry of life is run on the molecules that are provided in the diet to make compounds that run the physiology and biochemistry of life. On Sardinia, they also have wine with their meals, almost no meat in the winter, and they live on an isolated island that, as they say, is almost like in Roman times rather than in the modern area where you have French fried franchises, and they don't go to lowly populated, isolated areas. They go, that's why these islands and isolated peninsulas that make up the blue zones that they have found have very primitive diets, very basic, and again, a high percentage of plants. Next slide, please. This is emphasizing you don't have to go to the blue zones to get the benefit. That if you add more optimal nutrition, which is attainable by adding 3 scoops of New Eden a day to your diet, you get a lot of molecules that are low or missing in the modern food chain. And you need to walk equivalent of 3 miles because you're not out fishing with nets on boats, and you're not chasing sheep on the hills and all. There's some of these people in the blue zones. You can use a treadmill or swimming if you can, have joint problems, and even a bicycle. And of course, I emphasize again, an idealistic lifestyle. You can't be abusing your body. Next slide. Mm-hmm. Are 17 minutes up yet? This is another blue zone, and it's an isolated peninsula of Nicosia in Costa Rica. And if you can see it there on the map into the Pacific Ocean, it's in dark blue, and it's isolated from the highly populated areas. Again, most of your food is locally obtained. And let's go to the next slide. And the blue zone of Nicosia of Costa Rica, isolated peninsula, you can see their diet is 67% plant-based. And vegetables make up about 14% of their diet, fruits 9%, legumes 7%, grains 26%, and meat, fish, and poultry, and it's primarily fish and poultry, but all of them together are no more than 5% of the diet. They have eggs, and they have dairy, significant. Far as added fats is very low, and and even lower for sugars for this peninsula area, for one of the blue zones where the people live to a more 90 to 100 years old and in good health. You can go to PubMed and look at the titles, and you can get verification that scientists have duplicated what the World Health Organization has done to verify that a plant-based diet. And I might add that New Eden, every ingredient in it, there are about 14, are all extracts from plants, as close to nature as I can get them provided. Next slide, please. This blue zone, they have a lot of bananas, papayas, and they have tortillas on corn masa, and they have a lot of rice. They also have a lot of beans, onions, garlic, tomatoes, cheese, cilantro, and of course, Hispanic being jalapenos. They have a national, very common dish made of rice and beans, which here in this country we think of as Louisiana frequently, right. But they very the beans are. I have a lecture just on the remarkable nutritional value of legumes and beans and seeds. How the nutrient supply is in that little structure for the first root and the first leaf when photosynthesis turned on. So there's a lot of nutrition in all your beans and legumes. And again, a major source of food in Costa Rica is from their gardens and from their fruit trees. You ought to put all these things in your mind about selecting food in your modern area here in the United States. Next slide. This emphasizes again, as we go from one blue zone to another, that you don't have to move there, that you can get the benefits there of the blue zones by paying attention to your diet, to increase your activity so that you burn the energy for the food that you're eating, because food has energy in it and it's stored as fat if you don't have the activity, and that you need to have a lifestyle that avoids things in your life that promote disease or infections from the population. Next slide.
All right.
This is a blue zone that's kind of a metropolitan island, and it's in California, around where the Seventh-day Adventists have their hospital, their church offices and all. And the Seventh-day Adventists have a plant-based diet of about 81%, very high. And just like it points out that you don't have to be at these isolated islands and all, that right in California, just west of Los Angeles, you have this population island, so to speak, of people through their church use the Bible, particularly the admonitions and guidance, like in Genesis 1:29, it says, behold, I give you the herb-bearing seed upon the earth, and every tree that yields seed, and for you it shall be your meat. Again, emphasizing plants. And then we had the percentages of the Seventh-day Adventists of their food. So these are the this is 100% population. I think everyone wants to live in good health, a long, productive life, but in good health. Who wants to be in a wheelchair or with some kind of device from an intensive care unit just so that you can have oxygen in your heartbeat? Well, yeah. These blue zones, the individuals are living independently up into their 90s. And this is something that's worth giving a lot of thought to. And I try to emphasize repeatedly through these slides that you don't have to go there to these islands or isolated peninsulas, that by adding to your diet 3 scoops of New Eden, you will get a lot of the molecules that are low or missing in the modern food chain. One of those is the cruciferous vegetables. We don't like cabbage, turnips, radishes, and broccoli, and the little round balls, the broccoli. No, that's I've already mentioned broccoli. They're not high on our food chain, but you can take a powder in this, and I recommend taking it with yogurt. And for that 17 minutes, I guess we've stretched it.
We did, but I got to tell you got a lot in, and we can pick up on this on your next visit. And it's very important. One thing I should tell you, I think I'm in pretty good shape, because you talked about 3 miles walking a week. I do 6 miles a day on a treadmill or outside, depending upon what the weather's like. And I take this twice a day. And folks, you can get it on our website. Go to awakenation.tv. There's a jar right on the homepage. Click on it. It'll take you where you can get it. 2 or 3 scoops a day, twice a day, in your yogurt. That's the best delivery system. You can put it in anything, but yogurt's the best delivery system. It's delicious and nutritious, and it is going to get you nutrition that you're going to keep you healthy and around for a long, long time, just like Dr. McDaniel.
And it's well proven from these blue zones, the benefit of it.
And I'm going to live like I'm in a blue zone without being in a blue zone. So we will have you back, and we'll pick this up next time. Thanks so much, Dr. McDaniel. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Sorry we had technical problems.
Oh, that's okay. We got past it, and you cruised. Thank you so much. Dr. Reginald McDaniel here on the not the Dark Outpost. See, I'm thrown off today. My whole thing is off. Awake Nation. All right. And by the way, I'm going to admonish you folks one time, very important. No promiscuous body fluids.
Great.
You know what that means. All right, let's bring in our next guest, who never has any promiscuous body fluids. Nathan Reynolds, next from theflames.com. Nathan, how are you today? Good to see
David, how are you guys? It sounds like something's been going on the last half hour I missed, but man.
We've been having a nutrition conversation, but one of the things the previous medical doctor was talking about is proper nutrition, which he has in this great product here called New Eden. But he also mentioned, people in what they call blue zones who live to be longer and healthier because of their diets, and they're eating better than we are here in this country for the most part. And I'm sure you would concur. And that's why you kind of like teach proper gardening and proper farming and that sort of thing. So it's kind of a smooth transition into what you do.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. You also mentioned something that I don't know, for those that didn't catch it. You said you walk 6 miles a day. Is that right?
6 miles a day, every morning. Before,
wow.
I mean, I'm up at 6, and before this show starts, I've got 6 miles in, and not too bad. Not too bad.
Wow. That's incredible. You know, we're living in an area where we get to see a lot of city folk right now, and we live all over the place. We've traveled 150,000 miles over the last few years in an RV, but we are stationary right now, and so we're kind of in a neighborhood, and we get to see the walkers. You know what I'm talking about? Those neighborhood regulars that are out there on a consistent basis. And you know what? We have noticed some very stark contrasting differences of intellect when you talk to the people that are out walking and outside on a regular basis versus those that are not. And it is so noticeable. And because when you spend a lot of time out in more a rural area or different, especially like we lived on farms predominantly, small farms, homesteads, that kind of size stuff, not big ag style things.
Right.
The intellect as a baseline is so noticeably different when you have people that are eating differently. Just the single biggest contributor to those two things is being outside and eating above anything else that we have seen make a biggest difference. So I applaud you that you are out on and walking around, David, at any level, whether it's on a treadmill or outside. It takes discipline to do anything like that on a regular basis.
I do it 5 days a week. I do take Saturdays and Sundays off, but I make sure that I get it in, and I love it. I mean, there's nothing like the endorphins the pumped up feeling you get from the exercise. So I love it.
I'll tell you one of the one of the places where I saw a diet that was very contrasting and different to mine was in Afghanistan. And I went out there when I was about 19 years old, maybe just about 20 years old. And when I went over there, we stayed in Kabul, or an area outside of Kabul, and which is the capital city. And they had shepherds still. You ever seen like a real shepherd boy? Like it is a very noticeable difference to culture and to style, because the methodology that they have in raising their animals and livestock is not to just shove them in fencing all the time and barbed wire or electric fencing, but is you assign someone, and it generally was the youngest child in the family. The youngest child in the family had this responsibility of taking care of the family's wealth, because when your wealth multiplies, it's far more powerful and beneficial when your wealth can reproduce on its own. It's a really effective way to get some massive returns on investments. I'll tell you that much. And they had these little shepherd boys, generally like 9-year-olds, 8-year-olds, not teenagers by any stretch of the imaginations, boys that in our culture, we wouldn't trust them with a stick that's sharpened on one end of it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's because we become overprotective. We need to teach. You know what I think? This is going to sound crazy. You may disagree, but I remember when I was going to school, they actually had a gun class. They taught you how to shoot at a range.
What a life skill, David. What an actual life skill. You could potentially feed or protect your family and just enjoy a skill that requires discipline and training and an attention to detail. I took, one of the, there's for what it's worth, the Boy Scouts are a saturated, infested Masonic version of culture now. But at the time when I took it, I'll tell you, they had archery. Some of my favorite entire merit badges were archery and rifle and shooting, like marksmanship. They taught the fundamentals of a skill to me that enabled me to be able to make a quick adaptation when I went into the United States military. Not everyone goes there, but you don't know where your child's going to end up throughout their life. Like learning how to drive a manual vehicle, one of the best skills my father ever taught me. Learning how to drive a manual vehicle. I have driven tractors and trucks and motorcycles and all kinds of vehicles that I needed to learn the mechanics of being able to shift something that's not automatically doing it for me.
Do you realize, what's Nathan, what's worse? Imagine within the next 10 or 15 years, if the globalists get what they want, nobody will be able to know how to drive an automatic, because they're going to have the driverless electric cars, and you're not going to be driving at all. And then God forbid you need to get somewhere yourself. That's
well, and that's a way to limit access very quickly, because like, as we've even experienced with when some of these man-made disasters strike and fires burn down concrete and not trees, and all kinds of other just absolute targeted destruction takes place, they start to do this geofencing. Y'all familiar with this phrase?
Yes.
Where you can have drones where you're like, oh, great, I can go fly in there and be my own reporter and go ahead and verify for myself from a firsthand perspective what's actually going on inside there. And then they put these geofencing in to where it doesn't allow your drone to get into that area, that there's a software inside it that communicates with, agencies such as the FAA that doesn't allow them to cross certain lines. Well, the same types of geofencing are put into driverless car systems in order to keep them from going onto places that are restricted areas to them. And so that limit of access, like over in Ireland, we had very close friends of ours right during the calamities of COVID began to experience, I'm not allowed to go more than 5 kilometers outside of my door. And it was tied to their phones and it tracked them around. And to put for an American to not be able to go more than 2.5 miles outside of your door, 3 miles from your door, is a totally different confinement, a prison cell, for lack of a better word. But having a type of skill set that you're able to utilize vehicles that are not like that is incredibly valuable. So like, even still to this day, why it's very important for me to try to raise my children knowing as wide of a range of skills in order to be sufficient on their own whenever that time does come. They need to be able to be self-sufficient. I had a book here that I had gotten at a thrift store. I always go to thrift stores, y'all. Some of my books I find are out of print. This one's called The Complete Book of Survival by Eddie McGee's.
Ooh.
This is a real good, like, I like some of these older books that have been put out, but this was actually put out in Great Britain. So it was like a real random happens chance, but it's got, nice quality diagrams and pictures that go through it, black and white. But this What this
Nice.
book did, finding food. See, these are like paramount life skills, yo. Like I grew up in the White Mountains of Arizona, like next to a White Mountain Apache reservation and in Flagstaff, Arizona. My whole life, I lived basically over 6,000 feet in elevation. So it inherently just at a baseline gave me a very different perspective on how the world was and how fit people needed to be. Otherwise they died. You know, so I grew up with a basic level of requiring survival skills because I used to go out and explore on the White Mountain Apache reservation for hours on end. And it taught me paramount and chief among all of these circumstances was learning how to find your way home. You need to be able to navigate. You need to be able to orient yourself and find your way to a given destination. And that single skill set, David, of any that has been taken out of us is finding your way around without this dependency to a technological device. If somebody takes your phone from you when you're already at a destination, you're trapped for all intents and purposes, unless
you
you're all. You are, and it doesn't take a lot. Something that I've experienced is this whole other world of espionage and counter espionage that I went through. And when one of those things that would happen is someone would you would take over someone's phone and their GPS, and then you would change their map, and you would allow them to be brought to a destination that's not the one they're intending to. And you would be shocked how often people will drive somewhere that they're not supposed to go if they've never been there before. They obviously don't know any better, but you can literally take them on a wild goose chase and make them chase their tail. And some of you have experienced this even on your own map system, Google Maps or Apple Maps, whatever you use. It'll take you a random, ridiculous route, the most insane, frustrating thing ever. And you're like, why? It's that because we don't know any better, and because we have given ourselves over to a dependency on a technological device that can readily manipulate our entire life and experiences.
Nobody knows how to use a basic compass.
Switch.
Nobody knows how to use a compass anymore. Good luck.
Absolutely. And a map, a physical map. Like one of my favorite things I do when I travel into a different area, like one of those little skill sets I picked up along the way was to go to the welcome center. Like when you cross over a state border, when you cross over an area, they have these big welcome centers. And I would always go there because they have free maps.
Right.
They have free maps, and then they have basically a concierge, someone that will you can ask all kinds of questions about the people, the culture, the ideology, the best places to go, the worst places to go. You can really do a lot of what's called terrain mapping, a given area, before you go there without having to get on a computer and do everything else or look up addresses if you don't want to. They make physical printed maps of an area. One of my absolute favorites are truckers' atlases, trucker maps, because they will also show you the size of the road's capacity of taking a larger size vehicle or not. It'll show you the major highway, the arteries and the veins of a state or of a nation, and it gives you an insight into that area before you go into there. And you know what? That way you're not navigating blind, because if you just can imagine, some people have had to wake up in the morning after natural disasters. Like out in Colorado, we had these horrible wildfires that came in and began to just burn down on an incredible rapid basis. And there was one that took place outside of Colorado Springs a few years back, and it literally burned down towards the Air Force Academy. I mean, people that live in a city of 700,000 people, 800,000 people woke up to walls of fire and cloud that went up like Hiroshima style, massive, 40, 50,000 foot plumes of smoke going into the air. And I drove from Denver, Colorado that time down there at a very high rate of speed because my family had a house that was in the mountains. And when I was on my way back there, they began trying to shut down roadways. And if you are not a local of that area, I learned at that time growing up, I drove by maps. I was a professional driver, delivery driver, and like protective asset driver for a lot of years. And I navigated by maps because I learned that hackable technology stuff can cause you a big problem, especially when your job is getting your high value target from point A to point B safely. And so when I ended up going in there, the sheriff's department had begun shutting down all those major arteries, but I was able to navigate through back roads because of my familiar knowledge of the area. But otherwise, you have no way of getting in and out of these areas, and they can become kill zones. And I'm not just saying that as some kind of like potential. You can literally in the mountains in particular, if you've never been in a wildfire, you can have winds that are like tornado speeds, like an F3 tornado come barreling down and bringing fire and raining down molten materials, stuff raining out of the sky. So I began to drive into a city, Colorado Springs, this area called Garden of the Gods. There was literally ash raining down out of the sky so thick you couldn't hardly see, and it was lighting windshield wipers on fire. It was lighting people's windshield wipers on fire. And people go into these trauma states. When they go through that, they go into shock, and they're going to revert back to whatever level of real discipline, regular training they've ever had to encounter this situation. And most people have never had in their mind an option for how to deal with a life-threatening emergency situation of fire, not just like your house on fire. I mean, we used to do fire drills. Did you guys ever do fire drills, Penny and David?
We had when I was going to school, man. You know, you never knew they were going to come. That big alarm would go off. Everybody started had single file. You know, we do them. I do them at our home once in a blue moon. We tried that, but
yes. Well, my dad was a volunteer firefighter, and so he used to do fire drills in our house. And I remember total darkness, total like smoke alarms going off. He would go in and make the smoke alarms go off and teach us to get out of a building like that, how to find or search for somebody else that's in a building when you can't see. Just blindfolding someone and having them crawl around their house and putting a bunch of stuff in their way that's not supposed to be there. Trying to teach people like you should train for this stuff before it's go time. This is like the fundamental desire that I just would like to communicate today. Train for something before you have to do the thing. You know, as much as like we want to talk about survival and having your bug out bag and having your, you know, your fire starter and your bivouac sacks and all these, your firearms or whatever it is, you got to use this stuff. If you don't know how to use it, the first time to try to familiarize yourself is never going to happen when you're in a total panic flight mode or a fight mode and a freeze mode. When you are in that like pure baseline, I just need to stay alive right now, you are not capable of thinking how to use a compass and a map when you've never done it in your life. I know you think you'll be able to, but you won't. And because of that, it's going to slow you down. And in Colorado Springs, what happened is that fire began to come down the front range of the mountains. In Colorado Springs, the almost everybody in the population lives directly at the base of the foothills of the mountains. They start out at literal 14,000 foot mountains. They go from about 5,000 feet to 14,000 feet instantly. It's an incredible vertical gain right there. And so everybody lives at the front range of that. Well, those people began to see these flames coming down them. And then this was as they're trying to drive and get around. So people started running back to their apartments and their houses, townhouses, because they got evacuation orders and they had to immediately leave. They gave people 30 minutes notice. As these people are back there, my sister had an apartment down there at the time, and I pull into their neighborhood and people are trying to load TVs into their cars. Okay. Big flat screen TVs into their cars. And I just sat there and observed people, because it's rare that you get an opportunity to really see what the end of the world as we know it looks like in reality.
Yeah.
When you see people get in this state of mind, what happens is they revert down to this very base level of reactionary living. The critical thinking has shut down. They have left the building. Their mind has left the building. And what they're going to grab is whatever is to them most important. So there was a neighbor right next door to my sister who was asking me, will you please help us load this TV? And it was a huge flat screen to where they had to lay their seats of their car down in order to fit that flat screen in. Oh yeah. Because it's like moving day. You got to remember, if you've ever moved before, people that took the time to like what was most precious to them when they were moving, that's all that comes to mind. And so my sister, I had to help these people move their TV back into their car while flames are coming down the mountain. Okay.
Right.
And my sister, I go inside my sister's house and she is grabbing portraits off the wall. You know how people do their family albums along the walls of the stairs and stuff like. She's grabbing pictures off the wall. And her eyes are all bugged out, super dilated. She's in shock. She's grabbing pictures off the wall and has this stack of glass frame pictures. And I was like, can you just grab the hard drives that the pictures are stored on? Yeah. And it was like, bing, like totally instantly like, oh, I get it. There's like, I could grab my computer instead, you know, but if you practice this just a little bit ahead of time, like one time, just give yourself, turn on a timer, because a timer imitates and mimics. It'll cause you to get a little bit antsy and excited. It'll get your heart rate up. It'll give you a little bit of an adrenaline dump. If you set a timer on and say, give yourself 15 minutes to get out of your house and you're never coming back. Just try that one time and watch what happens. Like I used to do drills with my wife where we would load up our vehicle. We had a Toyota 4Runner and we would load it up with like our bug out bags. And then I had tiered systems of like, this is the equipment that we want to bring at different priority levels, depending on how much time I have to move my family. So that could be a basic kit that was on my person, or basic, a bigger bug out bag. Like my wife worked in the healthcare industry at the time. And what happened is, down at Good Samaritan Hospital, they started doing this partnership with the National Guard for lockdowns. Okay. And this is many years before anything was manifested that we've seen in our life and experience. But they started doing all of these drills involving the military to come in and land on their helipad with what are called ME6s, or like these little birds, like special forces, to come in and go ahead and secure the facility, because every nursing staff, doctor, medical response individual, they were an asset for the state. They literally would turn them into an asset for the state, and they were not allowed to leave the building, and they could be sequestered, locked up inside that facility. But they presented it as, we're doing this beautiful training so that we can handle an emergency situation. But if you read the fine print, what they were literally saying is their job is to be here to secure them in the building, to make sure they don't get out, to make sure that they don't leave, that they're going to go on these 24-hour shifts, and they're going to have rotation, and you're going to be sleeping in cots. And my wife and I began to game plan and strategize. Well, how do you get out of a situation like that? Do you have a change of clothes to get in and out of the building without looking like your normal self? Do you have a way of getting on a map system so you're not touching your car again and you're going to have to walk your way out of there? Do you know how to navigate alongside train tracks or other ways of going across roads that doesn't require you to go over the road? Like, you can make this a game and have fun doing it when it's a non-life threatening situation in emergency. The time when not to be trying to figure out and engineer your way out of this box that you're trapped in is when it's already taking place. It requires sometimes a little diligence and disciplines. Like when you tell me, David, you're walking 6 miles a day, this puts you so many standards of deviation above the normal person at your age. Just to be super transparent, the vast majority of people that are out of their 40s and 50s in any level of it are not touching their physical body stamina, endurance, strength. They have no idea what they're capable of.
Couch potatoes. That's all they are.
By design, by design. But a few generations back, or even just one generation back, it was a completely different interaction. Like my daughter and I were hanging out at the store, and this guy walked up to us, and we were talking to him. He's from Ukraine, and he was 68 years old. And I tell you, he honestly did not look a day over 50. He was not fit, but he was sharp and attentive, and he was so healthy. He was so healthy, and he was a passionate person about going outside and walking. That was like his deal. He just went outside and walked, and it gave him his life back. And I try to encourage people to have fun with this, like survival and trying to prepare for these scenarios. There's a lot of negativity that you got to wade through. There's a lot of dark realities that are out there about the people that are in positions of power. We have cultivated a society of psychopaths, those that are willing to do whatever it takes in order to have power because they were denied it at some critical phase in their life. They are willing to go ahead and do anything it takes. What was that?
Probably a kid. They were denied it when they were a kid, and they had temper tantrums, and then now they're going to go after people,
Yeah. And some of them had absolutely horrific growing up experiences like I did. Some of them had a structured, designed, orchestrated evil done to them on a repeated basis and shattered their ability to be able to fight back until they finally got somewhere in life where they were able to. And you know what? What happens is psychopaths go along with something called mutually assured destruction, where we literally are going to have enough blackmail and control on each other that we're going to go along to get along as long as we can, as long as we have to. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they've created a society. This is why we can't break free from a lot of these confines that have been put on us in so many arenas of our life, whether it is our food, our water, our medicine, our clothing, whether it's our politics, whether it's our judiciary system or the military. It's because we have a culture, a death cult at the top of it, a bunch of people that are really committed to only looking out for their better interests at the expense of all others. And so you have to learn to navigate through a society that is run by monsters. And you know what? You need to take some time and be deliberate with your actions and intentions to go ahead and train yourself ahead of time. If you have a firearm, deliberately, consistently try to train with it. If you don't plan on using it when the time matters, when you need to, because you won't. You genuinely will revert back to this level. I have taken guns out of people's hands that were scared. They could have shot me, they could have killed me, but they didn't have a category for someone coming at them and putting a knife to them that fast. They never thought it was possible. And as soon as you disarm somebody from their cognitive pretexts of what society should be like, you're the one controlling their perceptions. You're the one who's taking direct action when they're not. And it allows you to sweep through a society so rapidly when they're in that trauma state and take prisoners. And this is what's happened to our society. They put us in these trauma states. They have drowned us with so much learned helplessness that we think we just have to go along with the version of life that they've sold us. Like that you have to buy into the American dream. That American dream only works when you're asleep. But when you take direct, intentional, like self-sufficiency, like You have a duty to take care of yourself as much as it is possible to you, and nobody else is responsible for that. You should not be dependent on somebody else coming to rescue you, to help you, to
Right.
get you out of this pit that you're stuck in. You know what? You need to be the one who gets up off your stinking rear end and gets into the world. Like, get out there, get going, get moving, do something, find a way to motivate yourself. And for me and my family, it literally took this world burning down all around us, people coming after my wife and I, hunting us down, trying to murder us, before I was willing to absolutely do whatever it takes to get us out of this situation. And you know what? Because of that, it's opened my eyes to cultures and people. And I have learned there's so many marvelous people out there, way more than the psychopaths, y'all. There's wonderful, incredible, loving people who would lay down their life for you and give up their life for you. But you know what? They're most often not found in the confines of a city, because a city is designed to create frustration. It's designed to create that learned helplessness. But you know what? Scattered in and amongst them, there's a lot of people that genuinely want to raise their families in health, in peace, and in serenity, and they want to experience a good life. And because of that, we have an opportunity when we do go out of our houses to get to know our neighbors, to get to know them now, when it's not the first time my sister was meeting that neighbor shouldn't have been right then when we're trying to load stuff into their vehicle because they're fleeing for their lives. If we had done these kinds of build these relationships a little bit ahead of times, what happens is we can unite together during those circumstances and overcome them. There's a lot of incredible people that lived during those calamities, like what happened in Maui, or during these calamities, like what happened in Colorado, because people laid down their lives for their neighbors ahead of time. And by doing that, man, I tell you what, some of these experiences, it's one of the best things to go through, is a fiery trial in that regard. And you get to see some of the absolute best of people that you would have never expected. And so I hope you guys are finding ways to do that. And thank you guys. I so appreciate every chance I get to come on.
No,
here,
we
David.
appreciate you. We really do, Nathan. I mean, people really do need to be prepared, and they don't think about that. And we appreciate the fact that you're giving our viewers a heads up. It's very important. Please visit his website, snatchedfromtheflames.com. Nathan, we'll talk to you again next time. Can't wait. Appreciate
Looking
it.
forward to it.
All right. God bless. Bye-bye now. Nathan Reynolds here on the Awake Nation. You know, every once in a while, Penny, she's busy with, booking guests and stuff like that. But I every once in a while, we have a situation where I make it a point to visit some of our competitors and see, what they're doing on their talk shows at the same time that we're doing our talk show. Have you ever thought about doing that, Penny? I don't know if you ever
No.
Okay.
It's a great idea.
Just to see what's going on at the same time we're here. So I want you to know that while I was talking to Nathan, I just wanted to see what else was on there. So I went to a different channel. Here's
Oh my God.
Yeah, so just in case you're wondering, we do a much better show here.
Right? I'm legit like letting the dog out. I'm not doing some happy dance.
I just happened to see that, and I thought, so I got to put that on there. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're scheduled to have Jinny Silcox here.
We are.
Who's going to be talking about radiation, from what I understand. That's a hot topic, literally, and it could, it could leave you with a little afterglow. We'll get so in other words, what I'm saying is just don't go anywhere. We're going to get a glowing report about radiation when we come back. And welcome back to the Awake Nation with Penny L.A. Shepard and David Zublick with you. And joining us now, and it's been a little bit of a while. I'm glad to have her back, Jinny Silcox, here.
Hey, Penny.
Good to see you. How are you? Hey, you're in a new spot.
Yeah, I sure am.
Oh,
Did you move?
I'm getting a lot of sound from buffered sound.
No, that's okay. It was just a little clap track. We have a little applause when you bring our guests on now.
right.
Oh, okay. That's weird. No, I did not move. I see. Can you hear it?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you have a reverb? Is there a reverb going on? You getting a
Yeah.
slapback from this?
Yeah, I'm getting a slapback echo.
Okay, there's a setting. If you go to the settings, and in audio, just make sure that you have echo cancellation and reduce mic background noise checked. Do you see it?
Settings on what?
Okay, so on the bottom of your screen in this studio, it says mute, stop cam, and then right next to it says settings.
Okay. Okay.
So if you click on
Audio.
settings,
Got
and you
it.
go to audio, then
Echo
you click,
cancellation.
yes, and reduce mic background noise. That might
Okay.
assist you. Is that any better? She's like, not really. Is that any better, Jinny?
I'm
Jimmy?
waiting for all the sound to stop.
There's no other sound right now.
Oh no, it's the voice of Skull. It's hitting her. Just teasing you, Jinny.
Okay. No. Well, maybe it is cleaning itself. Oh, that was 20 seconds ago.
Oh, she's
Oh.
getting like a reverb effect.
Wow.
So she's getting some kind of a slapback. Do you have a microphone?
I have an idea here. There we go.
Okay.
All right. I stopped another process. I think we're back
Okay.
to normal now.
Okay. Good.
All right.
Welcome.
Yes, I'm in a different place because my sister-in-law had brain surgery and she's facing 3 months of recovery time. It was a non-malignant tumor in her middle ear. She lost her balance center and her hearing. And thank God the best facility in the world for it is about 45 minutes from here. It's called an acoustic neuroma. And I bet your audience probably actually knows somebody who actually had the surgery done. And it's a lung recovery because your body's not used to not having equal balance mechanisms on both sides of your head. And so she felt when she first got recovered, she was feeling car sick and kind of queasy and unable to navigate too well. And she's not,
You know what?
she
Did
was
they-
just, go ahead, Dave.
Did she take Dramamine for that? Because that might have helped at least a little bit.
She actually did pre-therapy. And
Okay.
this is a big deal. It was University of Penn Medical Center. And they're considered the place to go in the world for having it taken care of. And
Well,
my brother is diabetic and in a wheelchair and had
Oh.
many other problems. So I came here a couple days before the surgery on October 4th. I drove 1,800 miles in 3 days. I descended about 8,000 vertical feet and got here and started driving for people and shopping. And the first thing we had to do was go through the operation, which went perfectly.
No,
So
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad it was non-malignant too. That's good news.
yeah. So it's been quite a process.
You're literally
Well,
an angel, Jinny. You're an angel.
I'm missing Colorado really badly, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I'm glad.
That's my home, and my buds over there are missing me. But after this, I'm going down to Florida to a friend of mine who has a couple of kids, and his friends have kids, and they need a homeschool learning center. So I'm taking a bunch of stuff down, a microscope and a xylophone and all kinds of stuff. And we're going to look up the Colorado education standard, or not Colorado, Florida education standards. And we're going to slap together a curriculum that'll work for them.
Excellent.
And
Nice.
set up a learning center. Yeah, so I'll be doing that over the next couple of months. I'll be leaving here in a couple weeks. And because Pat just got cleared to drive, it's a big deal. So she's making excellent progress.
Wow.
And that makes it worth it for me.
Yes, outstanding. Well, I know you want to talk about, I think it's radiation today. Now, I got what you sent. If I'm not, it's like a one-page PDF.
No, it should be a whole PowerPoint presentation.
I don't know. All I got was a one-page PDF.
Now, didn't you send it like last week?
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I'll show you what I got, and then you can tell me. Let me just do this real quickly. Let's see, where is that? Let's see if that's it. I don't know. I got this. Oh, it is more. It's longer. You're right. Never mind. It looked like it was one page. Sorry.
Okay. Oh,
Never
good.
mind.
I'm just as glad we don't have to compensate. That's great. Well, since your audience doesn't get to see me very often, and most people probably by now don't even know anything about me, it struck me that who's this old lady talking to him about radiation? It's like, where do I get off knowing anything about radiation? So I thought I'd let you know how I know about radiation. And so what you're looking at is my Q clearance badge. And I had that for many years. I retired in 2012, but the badge went on for a couple years after. And that badge, by the way, is the thing that people like Brennan and Clapper parlay into multi-millions of dollars each year by keeping their clearance. And I didn't. Most of us Q clearance holders wouldn't even think of doing something like that, But we're not mucky mucks, so we're just kind of functionaries, I guess you would say. So my job was to design training, and it wasn't just necessarily for in-house. Some of it was, but some of it was for police and fire responders, for first responders, and also some of the training was for an entity called the Office of Secure Transportation. And I thought I would take this opportunity to explain to people a little bit about what's on our roads and what the sources are that are not necessarily nuclear bombs that could be impinging on us either in the near future or are right now, because it's happening right now in some
places. It is happening right now.
Yeah. So, and I do have prior experience. When I was working for DOE, I had a friend over at the Air Force Safety Center. He was an 06 and he was an SES. He was the only SES person I ever knew. And he drafted me over from DOE to work with the Air Force for 2 years on risk management for airmen. Because airmen were killing themselves on motorcycles. They wouldn't put a helmet on. Yeah. So we had to design a course for them to make better decisions. And then prior to that, I spent a lot of years doing high-tech work, European standards, compliance, investigation of electromagnetic fields that are being put out by medical instruments or that are being absorbed by medical instruments. And believe me, if you're going in for an operation during a solar storm, you better say an extra prayer, because a solar storm can actually impinge on some of these instruments. I think the testing limits are nowhere near what they need to be. But so let's just go on to the next slide.
All right.
And we'll start. Now, this is going to get a little technical. I'm looking at this as kind of a, I know people go, science,
No,
but
I think more people are interested in this than ever before. And I think that the way you present it, you always make it so easy for people to understand if it's technical.
Well, and I leave a lot out on purpose. I could probably talk to you about this aspect of it all day long, but I'm not going to. I'm going to cover it in a couple minutes here. But if you notice, see where the red lines are on both of those squares?
Yes.
Let's say that the space between the red lines is this passage of 1 second. Okay. So, and the energy fluctuation we're looking at here on the left goes to its maximum, back down to 0, and then to its maximum negative, and then back up to 0 in 1 second. And so that is it's going to be doing that 1 cycle per second. Okay, so 1 cycle per second, 60 cycles per second is our house wiring.
Okay, right.
And I still have yet to answer to my own satisfaction why they picked a frequency that hums in the walls that our ears can pick up. It's quite annoying. And
Yes.
they didn't need to have it be that low. And I think there are some reasons, but sometime I could get into the more esoteric reasons why I think they would pick such a low frequency. But I do really think that it's partly because they were evil.
I was going to say they're trying to mess with their brains, probably.
And your belly and your hara and all that. But so the thing on the right there is it's 2.5 cycles a second. You can see how many more peaks there are, and there's 2 more peaks in the space of that 1 second. So when people talk about frequencies, they're leaving a whole bunch of stuff out. They're not, what they're really talking about is the output of energy. And a frequency is just how fast it's going. A frequency, you're talking about the frequency of light, sound, heat, radio, microwave, cell phone, lightning, nuclear, cosmic. There's all this energy floating around that has many, many different overlaid rates of speed. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about frequency. And go on to the next one, because this relates directly to the next one. And point out that, okay, you can see in the middle of this graph, we have the low frequencies. And then the spiral gets tighter and tighter and tighter as we go up higher and higher in the frequencies. And pretty soon we're down. I mean, we go past the protozoans. The little one-celled animals are about the same size as the wavelengths in the light that we can actually see in the visible light. And then it gets smaller. Then it starts going down to molecules and atoms. And then it's finally down to atomic nuclei. That's the size of the wave that's produced by an atomic nucleus. Hard to imagine, but we're going to spend a little time there. Now, one of the things about movement, do you know the difference in, how we look at energy? Let's say we have a pot of water on the stove, and it's just sitting there. It's a room temperature.
Right.
And then we turn on the heat on the second pot, and we start getting it hot. And so what's the first thing that happens once you start heating towards boiling?
Well, the steam rises, and there's a little movement in the water there.
Yeah. And there's some little bubbles forming on the bottom, right?
Right.
And those little bubbles are actually steam bubble. They're steam bubbles.
Right.
And so if you notice where it's down on the bottom of this graph, there are 2 lines. The one says frequency, but the other one says temperature. A body's emitting that wavelength. So what we're talking about is that the higher the frequency, the hotter the temperature. So once you start getting into the realm of atomic nuclei, you are looking at something that is off the charts hot, hotter than the surface of the sun. And so the temperature down at the bottom is what is based on something called Planck's constant. Years and years ago in the 1800s, Planck discovered that when he was looking at iron in a blacksmith's foundry, that, at first the iron, it's kind of glowing a little bit yellow, and then it really starts getting hot, and it glows a deeper yellow, and it's got a red yellow look to it, and eventually it goes into kind of a purplish color. And those are not being produced like paint pigments. Those are actually the wavelengths of light being thrown off the hot material. So this has everything to do with the temperatures of stuff in stars. It has everything to do with the temperatures of the nuclear fuel rods in the Peach Bottom Nuclear Facility in Philadelphia, or Florida Light and Power nukes. This has everything to do with the amount of energy that's being produced and the amount of heat. And so I'd like to point out that when you're talking about atomic reactions, you're talking about extremely energetic reactions. And we are going to talk a little bit about ionizing, non-ionizing, and stuff like that. But so I go back and forth because I worked for emergency operations for DOE. There are a lot of you can take a course in physics and never learn one thing about how to protect yourself if a dirty bomb goes off.
Well, and right now, it's the biggest chance of that happening ever.
Why am I here? Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you think I'm here? So let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
All right, this is fun. Let's see if it runs in a PDF. I don't know. Try clicking it.
What am I supposed to click on?
Click on the ball.
No, nothing.
It's PDF.
PDF.
It's a PDF.
It flattens out an MOV.
All right, so I had it in the PowerPoint so that the ball hops across the screen and the bullet takes off like a shot. Okay. So if you think about this, we're making an analogy here about the speed of the particles or the speed of the rays. Okay. So if you think about standing on a real calm day, waiting for an ocean wave, just a slow ocean wave to come so you can pop on your surfboard. That ocean wave has a long, slow frequency that gives you enough time to get your body up on the board so you can ride. And it doesn't have a lot of turbulence. It's just smooth and powerful. And it's going pretty slow. So that ocean wave can hurt you, but in this case, it's not going to. So a baseball can hurt you. Okay, so I looked up the mass. And, it varies, depends on the model of ball, but 142 to 149 grams. And the average top speed I found was 90.9 miles per hour when a good pitcher throws it.
Yes. And ask any pitcher who has had a line drive hit him.
Yeah, right on the butt.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Yeah. So it's going about 2.2 feet per second once it's moving out there. And it's got a range of 550 to 575 feet, at which point air forces will take over and, turbulence and slow it down and then make it drop. And that's the bottom point of its trajectory. So the next one is a 40 grain 22 long rifle bullet. Okay. And it's got an average speed of 1,200 feet per second. So that's about 800 miles an hour. And its range is about 1.13 miles. And so, but look how tiny it is. It's only 40 grains compared to that 142 gram baseball. So here's the question. Which one can do you more damage?
Well, probably the baseball, even though you would think it would be the bullet, right?
No, I'm pretty sure if they're using these conditions that I know that I named, the baseball is going to hurt you. It's going to bruise you. Might break a bone, but the bullet's going to penetrate your flesh.
Yeah.
And the bullet might even go right through you. And that's exactly my analogy to radiation.
Yeah.
Those particles and waves are moving so fast. Your skin and your eyes and your lips and your tongue and your thyroid, they offer very little resistance to penetration by these high speed, high temperature, kind of crazy particles. So let's go on here.
Okay.
All right. So the way we get radiation inside of us. Now, this is, you're probably going, what, am I in high school health class? Well, I want you to think about this stuff. Okay. Now, I designed a scenario that I was not allowed to use for a training that I did for senior energy officials. And I worked with an animator. And basically, we did a little vignette right at the beginning of the course. And I'll make it real quick, but it's dark. It's dark at crop duster fields. And you hear grunting and wrenches being used. And somebody is opening a hangar door, pushing out a crop duster. And guys are pulling out some of the crop duster mechanism and installing some other tanks and stuff like that. And as the sun is beginning to peak on the horizon, the plane takes off and it heads for South LA, Toledo, Ohio, and various other places like Colorado Springs. These are all places that have crop duster fields within easy gas tank range of the major city. Okay, and so as that crop duster comes flying over the city, it's releasing chaff from the tanks that were installed. And the chaff has the cheapest, crappiest, low-level nuclear waste in it you could possibly ask for. And it's putting out alpha radiation, which only has a penetration of 1 inch. But as that stuff comes snowing down from the tanks, all the municipal radiation detectors are going to start to go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, there's a huge responder reaction because all over the city now they're getting radiation hits and they don't know where the heck it's coming from. And then as the plane dumps its load, it aims for the largest hospital or emergency response center, and then it starts to nose down and crash because it's out of fuel. And then it goes dark and you hear a phone ring and it says, "Wake up. You're the senior energy official on this exercise." And so to think of all the federal, local, and public response mechanisms that a person on a federal level has going to have to marshal in a terrorist attack situation like that, none of it's real. False events appearing real. Now, if people go out on the street that morning and they have to inhale any of that chaff, they are in danger because it's dust. And although those radiation things can only penetrate about 1 inch, you got it in your lungs. And so what happens when you have a mutagenic material stuck in your lungs and it's in there irradiating your lung tissue for the first inch? All right, so people, you should not take alpha emitters for granted. So, and then there's the standard other ways that people get stuff. Injection is a strange one, but you never know what happens in a disaster. I used to work with a guy who was a PAT. He was actually he worked out of Dubai, and he was commandant security at Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan. Okay. And he and I were working on a project that was a kiosk that was actually a dirty bomb dump station that would take the blowing up material and it was be spilt so that a responder could just toss that suitcase in there and run, and the thing would close itself down and vector the explosion away from people and direct and contain the explosion so that it wouldn't accomplish the goal, which is total panic. The main weapon is panic. It's not the radiation. So, and at some point I could go into more detail on
do they ever inject someone with radiation as part of a medical treatment, like an isotope?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's
and I'm going to be talking about some of those isotopes. Okay. Yeah, you can be injected for technetium. There are various. Barium is a very common one. There are a lot of medical imaging. Some of them are contrast agents, and some of them are enhancement agents. Some of them work with PET, which is positive emission tomography, and so they're completely different substances. But yes, they can enhance the detail level of what they see by injecting these ultra fine, tiny, very active particles that usually have like an 8-day half-life. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be glowing in the airport next month when you go to Bimini or whatever. Okay. So injection is one way that we get it. And so inhalation is something you have to think of if there's some terrorism going on. Okay. Irradiation is another one. Now, let's say you see a nuclear bomb go off. For a moment, you're going to get what's called prompt gammas. They come and go. Whoo, they're gone. And one or two of them might interact with a cell. You might actually get a mole out of it or something, or a freckle. But it's very, very unlikely that in that little split teeny second, you're going to have any damage. But now you could, let's say you got a big exposure that happened really fast. That's called acute exposure. And in that case, your body is probably going to respond. it would be like getting a sudden dose of cyanide poison or something like that. But anyway, so irradiation is sometimes given palliatively for bony tumors and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it'll shrink tumors.
Yeah,
it's a multi-edged sword. And so sometimes you find in older materials, you find mistakes, or you find, I guess I call it a lack of a viewpoint. But there are two others. One is ingestion. And, you might ingest intentionally. You might be drinking a barium enema.
That's true.
So you might want to have them look at that. And the thing about barium is it's extremely opaque in most ranges of the spectrum. Barium acts as a real contrast agent. And if barium is a little bit radioactive, if it's going to hang up somewhere in a bowel or something, you're really going to see it glowing. So it really is and it's pretty mild. I mean, it's not going to hurt you. And then, of course, they flush you. And then the other stuff is contact with material. And that is something that often happens unwittingly. In fact, that's what the whole goal is for dirty bombs. They want you to have an unwitting contact. They don't want you to know how much contact you've had with the radioactive material. Because if you don't know, you're afraid. And if you're afraid, you're more tending to panic and making bad decisions. And that's exactly what they want to accomplish, right? So, but radioactive materials being near you or being in your vicinity without you knowing. Now, I have a real quick story about it was terrible. It was back in the 50s. There was this jobber that collected scrap metal, and they collected an X-ray machine back in the days when they were still using radioactive materials to make the X-rays. And this big old iron case machine got thrown on the back of a truck and sent down to Mexico to a foundry. And on the way through town, little pellets were popping out of that machine. And the local townskids found the pellets and played with them. And that was fatal. But that machine and what pellets remained inside was put into the foundry and mixed with other metals and melted down into table bases that were for restaurants that were then sent back to the U.S. And so nobody ever thought to measure the table bases, and nobody kept any number track of where those shipments went. And so if you go into your local diner and you sit down at the same table every morning and you have your breakfast, you could be getting the equivalent of a chest X-ray every day. Just by sitting at the table base. Yeah. So that's contact with material. So the one thing so this thing on the lower left I wanted to talk about was, this is pretty much showing that most radiation comes out of the nucleus of an atom. That means, in nature, when an atom is stable, you've got an equal number of neutrons, protons, and electrons. They're all equal and they're all balanced. In a radioactive material, something's awry. You either have more protons than you need, or maybe you got some extra neutrons, or somebody's out of balance on the electron side. So that makes for hyperactivity. And there's this process where the molecule is constantly trying to balance itself, where it's throwing stuff off going, maybe I can slow down and balance out now that I get rid of all that extra energy.
Now, is this the same principle for microwave ovens?
It's a little different, Dave.
I mean, from inside out. I mean, that's the only.
No, it is. It is and it isn't. I'll explain that. That's a good question. So anyway, they'll throw off little bits of radiation here and there, and they're trying to stabilize, and that's called radioactive decay. And basically, atoms go through an entire sequence when they're real active and they're real unbalanced. They go down through an entire sequence of throwing off clumps of subatomic particles in order to try to balance. And every time there's an event like that, it's called radioactive decay of some kind. And then neutrons, the thing about neutrons is that they don't have any charge. So, you get all scared thinking about other stuff that's in the nucleus, like, oh my God, there's protons in there. And there are all kinds of things that happen when we have this decay. But neutrons actually have different methods by which they get discharged. A lot of it happens out in space. It happens in the sun. We can make it happen. There is a thing called a neutron bomb. They used to talk
Yes.
about it in the 70s.
Oh,
And
yeah. It
yeah.
leaves buildings standing and only kills the people. So you don't
There you go.
infrastructure, right?
Right. Right. So let's go on to the next slide.
All right.
Let's see what we got here. Now, one of the consequences of all this is you don't want to be in the way. And you want to do as much as you can to avoid this exposure. And so there's a constant old directive, time distance shielding. So you've got to give yourself time away from the material. You have to increase the distance away from the material. You have to get yourself behind some shielding. And, you know, as I said, in an alpha particle, a 1-inch piece of paper blocks an alpha. But what if it was in radioactive chaff that you just inhaled on the sidewalk and now it's in your lungs? So the best thing you do is give yourself a lung lavage as quickly as possible while those particles are still liquidy and still, you know, part of a healthy lung. So what I wanted to talk about here is radioactive daughter products, because a lot of people think a bomb will go off and it'll go down through all that whole sequence, you know, that we're all so familiar with, of the big explosion, and then the shock wave comes out and you see all that stuff happening. That is a sequence we've seen probably until we've had nightmares about it. But what's happening during that time is that the shock wave and the coupling of the energy exploding into itself, and here's where your microwave thing is going to come on. Okay, well, now what microwaves do is they resonate water molecules. And that's why the microwave oven is at 2.4 gigahertz, because that's the resonance of water molecules. And so by making those molecules go faster, they're actually creating heat. And the heat's what cooks the food. And it's kind of a sick way to cook food.
Yeah, they really believed that microwave ovens were going to be used by people more as real cook. All they ever used for is heating things up. That's it. I mean,
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Although I watched this insane kid turn a microwave oven into a laser. That was fun.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, these daughter products are they're very temporary. They don't last long, but each one of them has its own what I'd call radioactive signature. You know, when you got a radioactive particle, well, how do you know what it's putting out? Well, it's probably got a defined name and a half-life, and it's made out of a certain substance. Like it could be U-235, and you know, nowhere near what the Iranians are after, since they would love to be able to make some plutonium and U-238 and stuff like that. And there are entire industrial and DOE-wide processes that are designed to take low-level ores like U-235 and then subject them to different either chemical processes or physical processes to get the more powerful stuff out of them for the manufacture of fuel rods, for nuclear plants, and for bombs. And so if you notice down at the bottom there, it says neutrons. And neutrons given off by the fission reaction induce additional fission under 235U atoms in the fuel rod. So it's kind of like a local thing. And fuel rods are still undergoing radioactive decay. And they will probably do that for 250,000 years. Wow. So let's say we had an earthquake and the nuclear plant got the message and they shut down properly as quickly as possible. But if they sustained any earthquake damage from their waste fuel rod section, you better hope that the water is covering those rods, because the water acts as a coolant and it's transporting away all that extra energy and heat. It's bathing those things, which are going to be boiling hot for centuries. And so if there's a crack under a nuclear plant and it's properly shut down, you still get the hell out of Dodge. Do not stick around. And neutrons given off by fission reaction Okay, they're talking about the fuel rod. Well, if you live within 10 miles of a nuclear power plant, you are receiving extra neutrons just by the virtue of being a body
Really?
in the space. Yeah, so up to 10 miles, you have an extra neutron load. And therefore, I would recommend that you, as a matter of policy, that you just think of it as a baseline that you're going to increase your antioxidants by 20% on something like that.
Very
Because thing about neutrons is they don't have a charge, so they're not really attracted to anything, but they're real fast moving and they're hot and they're massive. And so if they want to go, they're just going to go. They'll just go right through you. And that means they're making holes. And the holes have some pretty interesting consequences. So I wanted, I put this thing over here on the right. In an uncontrolled atomic reaction, like a bomb, the conversion to daughter product takes place under huge amounts of electrical energy, turbulence, high heat, and extreme pressure. So quantities of unstable daughter products fluctuate. They decay and trigger others into existence. The material of the bomb, plus the plasma energy, sends out both ray type and particulate radiation. So afterward, there are falls of radioactive ash and rain. Dust will cut out the sun. Prompt gamma rays will destroy car modules. These gamma rays that come off of a nuclear explosion or a cosmic ray event are capable, or say an atomic bomb detonated 300 miles up in the atmosphere, something like that. The speed of those particles, it's like a flash and a shadow. And if they come in at an angle, which they most certainly will, to your vehicle, most modules are only located within about 18 inches of the ground. And so due to what they call Compton scattering, these high-speed materials, the gammas, can bounce off the first inch and a half of soil and bounce right up into the module and fry it. So then your vehicle stops. So
that
so
of course be the least of your concerns, though, would be your vehicle. Worry about what's happening to your body.
Well, actually, that's a transient effect, and that might, if you're nearby, it might be an acute event, but your body has mechanisms for healing itself. But it does much better when it gets one exposure that might be intense and might burn, but the body can handle that compared to years of being chronically exposed, like at the table, the restaurant and the table, all that. So let's go on to the next one.
Okay.
I'll watch my time here. All right, so we have how the damage happens. And then you can see that our DNA is double-stranded. And we get different events happening when we have one strand break as compared to two strands. And we get different events happening when we have one group of crossbars broken. The thing about DNA is it's extremely reactive. It wants to combine with things. That's the whole nature of the material of DNA, is that its job is to combine with things to make life. And so when you got these loose ends sticking out there, maybe some of them are going to hook up wrong. And then boom, you get a tumor. Because once they hook up wrong, if the cell is continuing to live and not just die back, then a tumor, if it's able to continue producing cells, a tumor might start to form. And you're also looking at the mechanism by which people go blind when they're exposed to beta radiation. Beta radiation is actually electron pairs coming off of a material. And those electrons are pretty high speed, and they'll go in and they'll cauterize the retina. And so people who are exposed to a beta emitter, like, cesium-137 that came from Fukushima, and it's heavy and
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming across the ocean. And the first thing I was worried about and aware of and tracking was iodine-131. And because iodine is taken up by people's thyroids, and it made it across the Pacific in a record time after that Fukushima incident. So I'll talk a little more about that in the succeeding shows that we have. But let's go on, Dave.
All right.
All right. So I've been looking at, this is something that I had to do for my job, is look at the vectors of delivery. And more, okay, I can tell you right off the bat, I don't have to mince words. We are missing radioactive materials.
Yes.
The national labs control they actually do the production of medical isotopes like technetium and things like that are used for medical contrast and probes and stuff like that. And so the national labs produce that material, and then they send it out under security to the various hospitals by way of the Office of Secure Transportation. And those guys are trained in military-style SWAT tactics, and they're extremely reactive. And they just don't. Number one, they don't take no for an answer, and number two, they've always got the eyes in the back of the head.
Right.
I would not want their job. But so a dirty bomb it's not going to use a radioactive explosion. It's not a nuclear explosion. It's not going to have any mushroom cloud or anything like that. It might have a mushroom cloud from a conventional explosive. It might be C4. It might be dynamite. It could be a fuel oil fertilizer bomb. But by having the dirty part of it, it means that it's got materials in it that are being spread out far and wide that are radioactive. So that increases the fear.
So you're not necessarily going to see that mushroom cloud in the city going off.
Right. And so I've shown you guys a little thing that I carry. I'm never going to just throw the stuff at you and not have some stuff to tell you about mitigation. But okay, so there are. I haven't had time to do this, but I will be buying a regular, more conventional radiation detector. But I have this little guy, this little nuclear keychain radiation detector.
Right.
And I don't know how good my camera is, but there's on the back is how many chirps you get and how many minutes you have to respond and get yourself out of there or die. So if it's chirping, you're running.
Yeah.
But right in the middle of it, it's got a little tiny hole. And the little hole has a copper or a brass diaphragm, and it pulls in about every minute. It pulls in a sample of air, and so it's constantly measuring the amount of radioactivity that it would find in the air. And I've only had it chirp twice. Both of them at Kirtland Air Force Base.
Oh wow!
And of course, you don't ask questions; you just go.
Can you buy these like on Amazon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. And I'm going to buy a bigger one that gives me a better display. Actually, I would like to be
at this time in our nation's history makes a great Christmas gift.
Yeah, this is true. Now, one of the things I carry in my truck, even to this day, and I thought about this on the way here, because boy, I-70 is under construction between here and Colorado, probably in 500 places, and every single construction place is a chance for a nuclear shipment to get out, to slip off the road and have an incident.
Right.
And there is something that I can't give you any details on exactly where it was going, but one of the calculations they have to do when they pack nuclear waste is they put it in barrels and then they put it in a material that acts like a gel to keep everything separated. And that gel is like a thick liquid that then becomes even more gelled once it sits there in the barrel. And they have standards and requirements for the placement of the barrels inside the load. The barrels cannot be within a certain distance of each other, and certain parts of the electromagnetic spectrum that the barrels are putting out must be nowhere near other parts of the electromagnetic spectrum put out by different barrels. So there's all these considerations about how they stack a load in a nuclear high-level waste shipment. Now, what happened was this truck got on the highway in the middle of the country on I-80, and they weren't expecting it was hot. It was a hot day, and I-80, I-80 is concrete underneath. And so for a vast periods of time in I-80, you go ka-clunk, 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 and you're going over the road.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it just so happened that no one did the calculation that ka-clunk, ka-clunk, ka-clunk rhythm was resonant with the gel, and it liquefied it. And so all of a sudden, the truck had to pull over because it had a fire. And that's not the kind of fire you could just call the fire department. Because all the materials, the gel in there liquefied, and all the materials settled down next to each other. And barrels were melting. Steel barrels were melting.
Wow.
Yeah. Probably going to get shot for that one.
Nope,
Anyway.
No, don't even say it.
Wow, Jinny.
So, yeah, that's what happens when you read the lessons learned database.
Right.
So, the thing is, a dirty bomb. Now, Pete and I, he was the one I was working with on the radioactive device disposal kiosk on the subway platform. But we realized that terrorists are going to set the bomb off before the station. They're going to probably be a mile down the track. And they'll do it at a time when nobody's going to see them.
Sure.
And they might not even destroy the train. They're probably not going to destroy the train tracks. They're just going to set it off so that it does a good old spray of whatever crap they have that's going to set off radiation detectors. And then the trains start coming for the morning rush hour, and they start bringing all that material in towards the station. And meanwhile, all these people are flooding down to the station, and the materials are being spread in a cloud over the people. Which is why I'm saying get yourself a radiation detector. You have no idea what's been going on 2 seconds before you came past that last interchange. You know, if I were here, I don't know, it's probably been a year now. I have to go over the section of I-95 where the truck burst into flames and melted out 2 sections of the overhead highway. And they just 2 days ago, they celebrated the opening of the lanes again in normal fashion on I-95. So nobody died. Nobody died on that incident. It's truly amazing. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, what is the harm of spending $100? You can put it up against your food, see if your food's been tampered with. You can put it up against the veggies you're buying to see if maybe somebody sprayed them with some crap, or you can just have it sitting on your dash and, you're going through a refinery area and all of a sudden starts chirping. It's like, get out of Dodge. You got to start admitting this technology into your awareness. So if you live near a coal mine or a nuclear plant, those are perfect opportunities for water pollution problems. And that's the nice thing about having some of these radiation detectors can test water. The main things you're going to see in water at a natural level would be argon, or not argon. Sorry, I wish it were argon because we don't get harmed by that. Radon.
And that's why they have radon detectors in homes now. They ask you to put them in there. Radon.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, radon is a quick ticket to lung cancer. So I gotta watch my time here. All right, let's go on. Well, I didn't go far enough. Well, I'm sorry. I just want to bring that back up again. So hold on here. All right. So a dirty bomb is the most possible way because it's really hard technology to set off a true nuclear criticality. That takes some pretty high-end technical expertise that I would say 99% of the world's terrorists do not have. But Iran's got it. That's for sure. Thanks, especially to having all the money in the world sent to them by somebody we all know and love on pallets on our airplanes. So, yes, and I used to know people who worked at Rocky Flats. I live 6 miles north of Rocky Flats, and Building 61 burned, I think back in the 70s. And that's when they were working on glove boxes. And when they were doing the cleanup on that building, they found 62 pounds of plutonium in the air ducts. So there's high level, unaccounted for amounts of nuclear material that has escaped custody. And believe me, those things are targets. There's a high yield on the market. That's why Hillary Clinton sold 20% of our uranium to Russia through a Canadian company. Now, I hope that comes out here very soon, but we never could see the emails. So anyway, so an overhead atomically caused EMP, there won't be any radiation. The EMP is what's going to kill you. And if you, this whole thing is all about energy. Yeah, it's about nuclear energy, but I'm talking about sound energy, light energy, heat energy, electrical energy. You think about energy. Energy is what makes our world comfy and doable. And if we don't have those things, if those are deprived from us, we got winter coming on. A lot of us probably die. You know, and it causes an incredible amount of desperation right off the bat to lose those things. And that's why an EMP has to be taken really seriously. And then there's your usual run-of-the-mill atomic and hydrogen bomb, the sum of all fears.
It's the everyday stuff, you know.
yeah, just the millions of detonations we've seen over time. So let's go on, Dave.
What can we do?
All right, so you carry a radiation monitor and a food tester. The biggest thing you can do is stay sharp and aware. You know, if you're sensing something, I think we all have better aberration detectors than we're willing to admit. If you get just a gut feeling that something ain't right, take action. Don't just write it off. Please. Coming here, I was traveling alone, and it was in the 80s, and I was on high-speed roads with a ton of traffic and lots of road construction. And each night I would study Google Maps before I did my trip, and then have myself blown out of the water during the day because of construction detours.
Oh, yeah. They don't take that into consideration at the time they're not up there.
Yeah, and then little things you pick up, like I was going to camp on the east side of Topeka, and I went through a toll gate, and the lady just happened to mention that Topeka was going to close I-70 for the entire weekend. And that was going to blow my timing really badly. So I ended up driving another 8 hours because I just could not tolerate a 2-day closure on the main artery. So that's one of the things I developed a real hatred of on that trip, is when we're all boxed in and we're all bumper to bumper, going 80 miles an hour, 75 miles an hour, and there's sloping hills of green grass on either side that make it impossible for most vehicles to get out of there. And if you got stopped for some reason, big accident, I got stopped on, I don't know the number of the highway, but right near Simla, Colorado. It's 18 miles from the Kansas border, and it's right where it joins I-70. Well, there was a huge line of traffic going up and down across the prairie, getting ready to get on I-70. And all of a sudden we came to a stop. And then we sat there. Now there's not a thing we could do. We could have gone back, I guess. None of us are willing to do that. But then there were 2 Flight for Life helicopters and about 20 county emergency response vehicles, and some big accident, and a couple of people died. And so most of us sat there for 4 hours on a little feeder road with no gas stations, no nothing. And boy, what a feeling of just being stupid, unaware, and incapable. That'll just shove it right down your throat. So anyway, I do have some that I'll just show you. I could show you a bottle. You can get some potassium iodide tablets, If
Yes.
there is any sort of an incident, whether it's a dirty bomb or an accidental spill, a nuclear criticality in a nuclear plant, whatever the reason, if there's any airborne radioactivity, you should be giving yourself and your family enough potassium iodide so that the most active iodine 131 radioactive isotope of iodine that is very light, flies through the air, comes on the plume. You don't want to have thyroid cancer.
And those are also available at Amazon. Just look at
Yeah, you can get everything at Amazon, but they're relatively cheap and they save your life. And okay, and I also say I do carry this. I carry a military grade gas mask and an extra filter, and I carry a Tyvek painting suit and booties and rubber gloves and goggles. Because the thing about radioactive dust is if you can slough off an outer layer and get down to your regular clothes, and let's say you're in a bad situation where you can't take a shower right away, at least having that, having a layer on that's going to help you, you can slough it off, chuck it off, and get rid of most of the dust. And keep in mind, while you're doing that, you better be holding your breath. So anyway, so the other part of it is I recommend if you're at home, well, always have duct tape and junk towels ready, because it is a foolish thing. If the authorities are telling you to shelter in place, please believe them. Do not go out into the plume. No. It could be a river plume. It could be a water plume. It could be a lightning storm. It could be any reason to shelter in place. But a lot of times it's going to be stuff you don't want to breathe. And there was a guy I used to watch. He's dead now. And he used to say, I'll tell you, I don't like the government. And if they tell me I need to shelter in place, first thing I'm going to do is get the kids in the car and get the hell out of there.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, yeah, you're going to evacuate right into a plume. Nice. So have a small room centrally located that's got some extra water and food and some bedding, and it's lockable from the inside. And if you want, you could even line it with aluminum foil. Yeah, I'm telling you to use it.
And those of us who are conspiracy theorists have plenty of tinfoil around to use. So
the one thing I'm saying with that, by the way, that room, there is a material they sell for $15 a sheet at Home Depot. I bought some and I haven't had a chance to use it. It's one side foil. It's like a foil 1-inch insulation board. I think it's called R22 or something. Anyway, it's got foil on one side and it's just a rigid board. And you can just easily line a room with that and put the reflectivity going out. And that will bounce off. I would say 99.9% of incident radiation will bounce off of you. So what's wrong with having a safe room?
Nothing. They have. We were talking the other day to a woman who happens to be an international Israeli singer, and every home in Israel has a safe room. They have to.
Yeah. So be ready to evacuate your home in 15 minutes. Because if you got to go, are you going to be leaving behind your gold or your guns or your birth certificate? And you may not get back.
Yeah, of course, Obama never traveled with his birth certificate, so I guess it doesn't.
Well, no. Well, and people throw their stuff in the Rio Grande.
Yeah.
You don't really need it. And don't expect your phone to work. If you need to, you have to come up with, even texting is better than nothing. Your phone, your cell phone part might not work. There's a good chance.
Very, very, very valuable information. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but we got it all in, and this and you have a question. You see that Jinny's email is MsElectromagnetic777@protonmail.com. She'll be happy to answer you when she's not on the road. And,
running a fever.
Yeah, I hope that you have a very blessed rest of your day. Stay safe in your travels to Florida, and you're just a kind-hearted, wonderful human being, and it's an honor to have you on the show, Jinny. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much for giving me a venue. I appreciate it.
Talk to you real soon. Bye-bye now.
Yeah, I love you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jinny Silcox here on the Awake Nation, and very important information, especially since we seem to be on the verge of World War III. As you can see scrolling across the bottom of your screen, by 6 p.m. Eastern tonight, we'll post a 30-minute newscast. Please tune in at youtube.com/at the Awake Nation News. Finally today, a Texas Southern University tuba player punched out an obnoxious heckler during Saturday's football game against Jackson State. The marching band was positioned in the stands. The Jackson State fan can be seen in a video, I don't have the video, aggressively yelling at the tuba player who's attempting to continue playing with the band. Suddenly, the tuba player quickly punches the guy 4 times in the face, then goes back to playing his tuba as if nothing ever happened. It's not clear whether the heckler sustained any injuries or if any action has been taken against the band member. But apparently, from what I understand, and I could be wrong about this, but from what I understand, among other things, the heckler called the tuba player a blowhard. So that's what's happening here. That is going to do it for this edition of the Awake Nation. We'll be back tomorrow morning again at 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern to do it all over again. Tonight by 6 p.m. Eastern, the Awake Nation News on YouTube. We are out of time, so we are out of here. Zublick out.
Shepard out.
Goodbye for today from the Awake Nation with co-host David Zublick and Penny L.A. Shepard. You can catch us live on Rumble, X, and at awakenation.tv. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. to 12 noon Eastern. Join us for the Awake Nation News for a quick shot of espresso for 30 minutes of breaking news, 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Eastern. The Awake Nation, the truth with a shot of espresso. On behalf of the Awake Nation, with co-host David Zublick and Penny L.A. Shepard, we humbly thank our Dark Outpost and Awake Nation family. We thank you for watching the Awake Nation and ask you to join us each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. Ship doo 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 doo, yeah. Ship doo 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 doo. Ship doo 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 doo, yeah.